back.
Shit, I'm back. Grunge Bible
44. We're back in it.
One on each side, little primer. Get us ready for the new episode. Man, how's it feel, Chris? We're recording this on what day is it?
Tuesday, January 11th. We are recording this, and it's coming out on Friday, so a couple of days away.
Awesome. Yeah, we've been talking a little bit, but I'll let you go first, Chris. How are you today?
You know, I'm a lot better than you are based off of our conversations before hopping on to record this episode.
I'm a little hot.
Yeah, I can tell. I can't wait to hear about it. Pretty status quo over here. You know, life is more or less back to normal after our trip to New York last week, the weekend, etc. And shit, I'm back.
That's great news. I'm glad to hear that you're back in a decent normal rhythm.
Yeah. What's eating you, brother?
Dude, well, this seems like there's a lot going on right now. So I did make my travel back down south. So last week after New York, 2 days of driving, like 15 hours in the car, and then over the weekend had like a stomach bug. I was kind of hurting on Sunday. Actually, it was kind of weird, but just like a stomach thing and like a lower body dealing with some stuff. And I thought it would. That was it. But then something happened this morning, and my personal Instagram got hacked, Chris. And
you're locked out. You're left out in the cold.
Dude, I'm a nobody. And you know what? It all happened so fast because I had a lot of other shit on my mind. I thought dealing with this thing with my tooth, got a toothache and some other stuff. And, I'm just wanting to focus on the things. And I got deceived by, it's like the perfect scenario where all of a sudden I'm locked out of my account. They changed all my shit.
Is this the modern day equivalent of the old, the Nigerian prince scam that they've been running?
Basically, it's like Pizzagate, or it's like the Trojan horse. Sorry, I'm getting hot. I got to take off my flannel for this.
Yeah, you're fired up.
Dude, all of a sudden I went from, I only had like 2,000 personal followers and shit, right. But it's just, it's your personal life. It's the one thing that I actually like, that it's a little bit smaller, and but now it's gone. I don't really know what's going to happen.
Nothing, man. You're a kite without a string.
I did everything I could. You talk to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, that happened to so and so." I'm like, yeah, how'd they get it back? I'm like, oh, I don't know. No one knows. No one knows how this shit works, Chris. And exactly. I mean, we've dealt with
Instagram doesn't even know how this shit works. There's no work process. There's no nothing. It's all just a crapshoot.
Yeah, and it's all like the only people that got it, the only people that figure this shit out, they know people, and those people probably don't know anything. They just kind of
the people who get it back, because we dealt with something similar on our Instagram page. We were having some visibility issues. We got it back. I don't have the first clue how we got it back. So like you talk to somebody like, hey, like my Instagram was hacked, like yours was too. How'd you get it back? They're like, shit, I don't know.
Back. All I know when I get back, I'm back. Like it's one of those things where I did a few different things to kind of like, I think I'm going to get an email or notification, because they still had my original email and information that I used to set it up.
Right.
And I'm like, took a picture, the cross reference with what I have on my profile, because they deal with this shit all the day. Hackers are out there.
Oh my God, dude, they're everywhere.
Motherfuckers are, and I get texts from all my, like, I guess I got a lot of friends because everybody's texting me telling me I got hacked, or maybe they just want to be the bearer of bad news. But like everybody
really want to ruin your day.
Everybody's letting me know, like, hey man, you got hacked. Like, yes, I know. You don't think I was on Instagram this morning?
Me about the fact that you got hacked. Like, hey, Ethan got hacked. He's like, I know.
Like, you don't think I've been on my personal Instagram this morning? Like, right. Any normal human being? Like, yes, I know. I'm like, and then they're no help. I'm like, damn.
No one's any help. I'm not any help.
Yeah. So, well, it says you like, if I can do anything, let me know. It's like, dude,
there's nothing you can do
unless you know how to get it back.
It's the thing that whenever something goes bad for somebody, you have to say that, even though it's like the whole, oh, let me know if you're in town, we should hang out, when like you don't want to be hanging out with that person, but you gotta say it.
Oh yeah, and then you have to, hopefully if they do follow up, you have to be busy for doing something. But
exactly.
So I've learned two things about this, which is funny because we've been talking about two forms of authentication a lot recently, but two things. One, I'm happy that it happened to my personal account and not obviously Grunge Bible, and the other page I run USA Javelin Project, and literally anything else, my bank account, other stuff that actually means something. This is just social. At the end of the day, it's
low on the pole.
At the end of the day, it's a social media thing. If I got to restart, I got to restart. And people that are getting this notification knows it's not me. So it's nice that it's kind of a stiff reminder that this shit does happen. When you don't think it can happen to you, it does. And so it's a nice reminder to just be a little bit more secure. It may take a little bit extra time, but the headache is just unnecessary in a lot of ways. So that's the one thing. Just do the extra steps to be secure, and you're going to make yourself a lot easier, because at some point in this day and age, these hackers are fucking everywhere. So,
they're absolutely everywhere.
And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, and the other thing is just I got to be off the grid a little bit, and sometimes I think I got to take things a little slower, and this might be the perfect thing for it. It would allow me to focus on some other things, I guess, and I'll just put trust in the metaverse, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, Zuck is cooking up something to remedy this pain that you have.
I just can't imagine that they're not flooded, no pun intended, with people's accounts. There's billions of accounts,
man. I mean, how do they know? How do they keep track? They don't.
Yeah, so they probably deal with this every day. If they don't have a fix for this, then why do they worth so much money at this point? But
sounds like you're in a pretty tough mood, and
yeah. So we'll see what I can give you for the pod. I mean,
I was gonna say, so you're not in a great mood, and I can't think of anything better to do right now than to dissect one of the most depressing pieces of music to ever come out of the 1990s, and that's Jar of Flies, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That's exactly why we started this podcast. So yeah, I'm excited
we're going to make a bad time better by making it worse.
No other way. Jar of Flies is actually a big jar of salt, and we're just going to pour it right into today's wound.
Absolutely. But before we get into that, I actually do have some unironically good news, some actual positives, and that is we have a new member of the top level tier of Patreon, and they have presented themselves as none other than Wayne Staley, not Lane Staley, but Wayne Staley, his long-lost younger kid brother, presumably. Wayne Staley has decided to join our top tier on Patreon to support this podcast. So Wayne, wherever you are, whoever you are, I'm assuming that's not your actual name, but if it is, that's fucking awesome.
That's cool too.
Thank you. We're very appreciative of that. It seems every single week we're getting at least, one or two people that presumably the week prior were like, you know what? I've reached my fill. I have to support these schmucks. And I guess it was Wayne's turn now, and he answered the bell. So he joins this legion of bell answerers that consist of Rachel Corning, Bubby, Millie, Alexis Shannon, Fuck Soup, Jamie Lynn, Kayla Jean, our number one fan from Australia, Marianne, Lauren Irene, Shannon Gorgon, Sue, Sunny Mashburn, Victor Schaefer, Release, and Jade Mercado. I think we're up to 17 now, Ethan.
Yeah, dude. It's there is nothing better than getting a new notification that Wayne Staley is upon the Legion, and the number is
the only thing better is like if like Teddy Vedder came in to support us or something like that. Dirt Cobain.
I was gonna say Kurt Cobain's the same. Burt Bobain, something like that. That's the next challenge to whoever's next on the League of Supporters. Yeah. I challenge you to pick.
What name can you come up with?
Yeah,
we'll say anything as long as it's not a slur or offensive. We'll say whatever you want. I mean, we say fuck soup every week. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we had the real Billy Corgan for a little bit, and then we have Wayne Staley. So who can take the top spot for names? We need somebody to jump in there. So take the leap of faith. It doesn't cost much. It's a cheap, shitty cup of coffee, as we like to say.
Speaking of that shitty cup of coffee, we had somebody join at our middle tier this past week.
Yes.
Made a post this weekend. I can't quite remember what it was about now. It's all just warped in my brain. But Lindsay Calloway has hopped on the train in the middle tier. We had posted something, and she was like, "Fuck it, I'm in now." After you made this pop culture I forget what reference I made, but anyways, we secured Lindsay's undying allegiance to the Grunge Bible Patreon. So Lindsay Calloway, thank you so much for helping us out here and supporting us. I'm assuming that means that in addition to liking the one random reference we made out of 6,500 posts, that you might also enjoy the podcast. So welcome aboard.
Amen. It's all great stuff. We're doing good things. We got a lot of good things coming up. I don't think we'll, we won't release any information yet.
We're not allowed to speak about.
We're not allowed to speak about those things exactly. But it is coming down the pipe.
The time will come.
The time will come. So Chris.
So
Jar of Flies, and if you remember,
Jar of Flies.
So a little fun story about this podcast. It's a long time coming because I think 2 years ago. It's been 2 years. Believe it or not, we've had this podcast for a year. If you haven't heard, and but like we tell you every week,
episode in a row.
It's our 40th. Yep, and we've almost hit a year. Yada yada. So obviously, we've been recording. We've had the idea for the podcast for a lot longer, and 2 years ago we tried to do it. And what a fail it was. And of course, our first episode, we wanted to talk about Jar of Flies. And Chris, how did that recording go? Do you remember? Can you give us
I'll
provide
a window into that for the listeners. So this
it probably was 2019, like right before, like in the fall.
It was the summer of 2020. It must have been June or July of 2020, and certifiably the worst period of my life to ever exist to this point. And we decided, we're like, fuck it. The pandemic's happening. We're at home. Let's make a podcast. So we decided to sit down, and we tried for the home run. It was our first at bat in the major leagues, and we were swinging for the fences, and we're like, fuck it. We're doing Jar of Flies. So we sat down and tried to go song by song on Jar of Flies. We had horrible infrastructure. We didn't know how to podcast. We didn't have that back and forth. And maybe someday we'll rediscover the tapes from it and release it on Patreon or something, but it was not good.
Well, we obviously had a good relationship, so we could talk. But what we did was we tried to do a song analysis, song by song, and get deep into the lyrics and the instrumentals. And it was just so heavy and so deep for the first podcast that there was no ability to get a rhythm, because it was like that was, I don't know, there was pressure to do it perfect because it was such a heavy album.
It's like trying to have like a fourth grader read Tolstoy or something. Like you're just not going to get into that. And
we didn't have Zoom set up, so we weren't even looking at each other.
We were total frauds. I mean, we're frauds now, but even more then. It was
bad. We like right now we can look at each other and like at least we can see when the other person's about to talk. And the other way, it was like, did Chris fall asleep or is Ethan at the bathroom? Like we had no idea, and it was a total fail. And we tried like, I think we did like 2 or 3 times, and then we're just like, this is not how this podcast is going to run. And it's not. I'm so glad that we changed. We're like, wait a minute. This is not us. Like, let's do this totally different.
Yeah. I'm so happy that we did not ever release that into the ears and eyes of the public. Well, there were no eyes because we weren't recording the damn thing, but the ears at least. But yeah, so this is kind of a full circle moment for the Grunge Bible podcast. This is like 21 months in the making right here.
Yeah, and it's something that we obviously always wanted to do. This is one of our favorite albums, and it is really special. So it's not hard to talk about. I just think that we just did it. We had the wrong plan the first time. So we are excited for this episode, and we are ready to get into this because this is one of the best EPs of all time across any genre. Obvious. Yeah. I mean, there's hands down, one of the best EPs ever.
It's on the short list. I mean, certainly in the genre, I can't think of an EP that's better. And this actually is pretty timely. So this is going to be coming out on Friday, January 14th of 2022. And this EP was released on January 25th of 1994. So another week and a half's time, and this EP will be turning 28 years old.
Wow. That's amazing.
So
slightly older than me, just half a year older than me.
It's got a what does it have? 8 months on you, huh?
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I think that our plan is to kind of go through and just pick out a few songs that we really want to talk about. Do you want to go through the origin story? I know you have a really good...
I'd love to provide some background here in case people didn't know. So this album, as we all know, this was not Alice in Chains' first foray into a more acoustic setup, that you wouldn't have found on Dirt or Facelift. So they had the Sap EP come out a few years prior, and this was really a return to, I think, a lot of those sounds that they were investigating and were kind of feeling out at that time. And then, Sap had come out, and then, Dirt came out, and they toured Dirt very, very extensively in 92 and 93. And they pretty much went into the studio hot off the heels of finishing up their Dirt tour. Mike Starr had been kicked out of the band. Mike Inez came to replace him on bass guitar. And this EP, Jar of Flies, was recorded in the span of 1 week's time in September of 1993. So, as legend has it, the band gets off the road. They toured, all winter, spring, summer of '93. They come home, and I guess because of oversight or what have you, they had neglected to make their rent payments on their apartment or home or wherever they were living. So they got evicted. So they decided to take up residency at the London Bridge studio in Seattle. And that's where this whole thing went down. I believe September 7th through the 14th of 1993, they hopped in the studio. Like I said, it was Mike Inez's first recordings for Alice in Chains. And, really one of the first times that Lane Staley had written the lion's share of the lyrics. So out of all of the tracks on here, the only songs that Lane didn't write the lyrics for are No Excuses and Don't Follow. So, it's definitely interesting, in the beginning, Lane was doing most of the singing and Jerry was doing most of the lyrics writing. And then Lane encouraged Jerry to sing more, which he began to do. And then as the band progresses, Lane's lyrical voice comes out more, and this is a lot of subject matter from Lane. And I think Ethan, you can kind of tell this is coming from somebody who's struggling with a lot of different things, around this time, 1993, 1994.
Yeah, the lyrics and a lot of these songs do have, they're riddled with his problems and his drug use, and it's no surprise. That it was hard for us to talk about, try and attempt to talk about it way back, and I think that's why, because it is very, there's a lot of very poignant songs and pretty tough ones to listen to at times. We talk about a lot. It's one of those EPs that you don't want to spend too much time with because we were advised when we first started listening not to spend too much time in certain areas, and I think this was one of them.
Yeah, this is some heavy stuff, and I mean the subject matter is so heavy that this is kind of one of those compositions that it's almost impossible to listen to casually. It's not really an EP that you would throw on in the background while you're getting work done or something, because if it's on, it's gonna grab your attention. I mean, it starts with Rotten Apple, but it even starts before that. It starts with the album packaging and the album cover and the album title. I mean, that iconic picture of that child just kind of glancing through this mason jar of flies. And Ethan, I know we've discussed personally the inspiration behind the title and behind the packaging, but for those who may not know, the genesis of the Jar of Flies name and the album cover comes from a science project that Jerry Cantrell, as a young lad, conducted in the third grade. Now, evidently, this project consisted of 2 jars of flies, and the jars were sealed, and the flies were living in these jars. And one of these jars was overfed, and the other one was underfed to the point of almost being malnourished. Now, the overfed jar, they were getting along great, but then all of a sudden, the flies started multiplying too much, and they all died because they were overcrowded. And then the underfed jar, they almost died off, but they were able to carry on through. And when all was said and done, they suffered heavy losses, but they were the jar that was still around with flies living in it. And I don't think it's ever come out why that was significant. So they had asked Lane Staley at the time that this had come out, what is this about or why? And all he had to say was, I guess there's a message in there somewhere. Evidently, the experiment had a big impact on Jerry. And I mean, yeah, we could do an hour trying to dissect what that means, but it's heavy, man. It's perfect for Alice in Chains, man.
It's the perfect analogy for. I mean, you could almost I could see a coach telling that. I could see a pastor telling that story. I could see certain services talking about a Jar of Flies experiment like that. So pin it to Alice in Chains during that time is, and like you said, there must be something in that Jerry experience. And yeah, that's such a good album cover and backstory for it.
It's
I
like a
love
yeah, it's like a cautionary tale against decadence, but also a testament to how hellish it can be to endure bad situations. I mean,
how
like
strong how strong the seclusion can be, how strong you can be, or yeah.
yeah, and just people's ability to endure shitty situations. I mean, you got the flies that were barely being fed, but they found a way to carry on. And yeah, that's something that I've always been fascinated by. Like, I mean, just across the world and throughout history and in people's lives as they struggle, people's capacity to just endure bad situations. And it's kind of scary how people can almost just get used to anything, and then sooner or later it just becomes their life and it becomes normal. Like what we have the capacity mentally to just accept as normal and to endure is really scary. And maybe that's tied in with, addiction and the different things that these guys were struggling with at the time.
Yeah. I think we'll kind of jump over to a couple of the songs. I think we've talked about Nutshell a few times, but I think I want to start with Don't Follow.
Yeah. Second to last track, which I always think that it's the last one. I always forget that Swing on This exists. I always figure Don't Follow is the perfect bookend to this EP, but there's another one. But yeah,
Swing on This is like it's like an outro. It's just like
exactly, yeah.
It's just like something that you hear.
The credits. We'll play Swing on This.
It's something that you hear in like the dive bar, like, oh, the bassist is still on stage. He's still kind of he's still hitting away. But yeah, don't follow, and it would be a really great final song because of Don't Follow being the last thing and being able to talk about kind of, like, trust me when I say don't follow, like this is the last song. I really do. That's probably is one of my top Alice in Chains songs. It's just starts really bright and confident, then almost goes into a whole different whole different song when the drums come in. So it's just like, it's just a good piece of
and then when you have Lane coming in at the end, it's so strange. And you and I both being sports minded people growing up playing sports, it's almost like when Lane comes in at the end of the song and you haven't really heard much of him, it's almost like that special play in your playbook that you're waiting for the perfect time of the game to use it. And like you might be, you're down a little bit and then you deploy this play and it works perfectly. It's like Lane doesn't come in, you just hear Jerry and pretty much Jerry's guitar. He's plucking on his guitar, and then all of a sudden you get the harmonica and the drums come in. And then Lane comes in and absolutely just rips, and now they're Jerry's lyrics, but coming from Lane, like you feel Lane almost inhabiting those lyrics, and scared to death, no reason why, do whatever to get me by. I mean, that's kind of analogous to the flies in the underfed jar in a way. It's like you just have to endure, and regardless of whether it's somebody else, something someone else is doing to you, or something that you chose for yourself, this horrible situation you're in. It's like at the end of the day, we're all just trying to survive.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I really like the way the song progresses. And the harmonica I wanted to bring up because like the harmonica and like the picking of the guitar is such like a journeyman, like traveling type of sound that like you kind of get. Yeah, and
that's the rails in the boxcar,
Exactly. And then that was very intentional. I think that like it is the song is itself a journey, but it's analogous to the journey that we all face, but they have faced. And it's like it's a long journey. It can be very lonesome, and but it has its like ups and downs. Like I said, within the song, I think is important. But dude, it's a journey. The song and the EP,
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I think of with this EP, I mean, it definitely showcases Lane, and it showcases all of his struggles, and it's an interesting look into that. But another thing that I can't help but think of with this album, this is just a bass guitar festival. I mean, Mike Inez joins the band, a few months before they hop into the studio and record this thing. And it really starts with Rotten Apple. I mean, his work in the intro there, and I mean, really his work throughout this entire album is really, really impressive. And I think the fact that they went acoustic for most of it really allows the bass to shine a little bit more. There's a little bit more room for the bass to come through, and just, you'd probably have more insight into this than I would, not being a drummer, but just it seems like the stylistic presentation of the drums is a little softer spoken, that it really kind of allows some different things to come through. And I mean, you have some strings coming through, like on I Stay Away. You have the bass guitar coming in, you have the harmonica, like you said, the harmonies. But I mean, Rotten Apple is one of those. I mean, Mike pretty much opens the thing up with his bass at the beginning, and just kind of how that was constructed. And lyrically, Lane wrote Rotten Apple, and there's obviously, I think, allusions to the biblical story of the apple in the garden. And there's definitely some different things about drug addiction and losing your appetite, losing your confidence, and different things. And for a song to kick off an EP and really all of these themes, I think the band had explored lyrically their whole careers. But this time, the electric guitars go away, the in your face noise goes away, and it kind of gets, I don't even know how, but it gets more real than it ever was before, which is tough to do coming off of Dirt.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point that there is a lot of space in the music for certain aspects to shine through, the bass and the lyrics to really set through the guitar, and I think that it's really, it was thought out in the quickly. I guess it was put together in a week's time.
1 week.
But it's I don't know if that just shows how good of a songwriter, like how well they meshed together, or if that just shows like that this stuff was so I don't want to say easy, like it's just such a natural album for these guys to make together. You know what I mean? I don't know if it was just like a time and place thing, or if they've been working on it like in their heads a lot, if it was exactly, like music that they've been kind of churning, or if it really is just talent, and just coming out like all at once.
Yeah, because everything happens so quickly, like you said, and that's not a normal thing. I mean, whether you're recording an EP or a full-length album or even a single, I mean, to spend a week in a studio and come out with something like this, I mean, there had to have been, at least subconsciously, a lot of these things coming to the surface. And, you have Rotten Apple, and then I think, the crown jewel of this EP is obviously got to be Nutshell, and what it means, both looking back at the the life and the death of Lane. And it's almost, I think every single time we've posted it on the page, it's almost, people treated it as if it's almost anthemic of struggling with addiction and different things like that. And I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find more potent, more sobering lyrics on any song from the entire genre, from the entire decade.
Yeah. Yeah, if we were to pick, I'm just like reading over the lyrics, and the last 3 lines, like, yet I find repeating in my head, if I can't be my own, I'd feel better dead. And it's very sombering to say out loud and think about that. That's
the thing. It's like, what can you say about a song like Nutshell? And it's funny, like in my notes for this episode, I wrote some different blurbs about some of the different songs. And in Nutshell, the only thing I have next to it is I put LS because the lyrics were from Lane, and then the only other thing I have is holy fuck. I don't know what else you can say about this song. And it's just when you listen to it, it's like as a grunge rock fan or as an Alice in Chains fan, it's like, there's before you've listened to Nutshell and after you've listened to Nutshell. And right. I think both of those times are incredibly different, and it's like a line of demarcation in a way.
And then you take it to another level and you watch him sing it on stage of Unplugged, and you're like, it takes it to another level because you just see the song, it's another level.
Death's doorstep from 96 until his death in 2002. I mean, he was not well on that stage that night, and I think everybody knew it. And you're exactly right. I mean, it's almost scarier than listening to the studio recording, and it's more powerful.
Yeah, and then that's I don't know, that's Nutshell. That's what it is in a nutshell. Like that's this album. A lot, and I mean, and that MTV Unplugged. I mean, it's chilling. Talking about and thinking about it.
It's heavy stuff, and it's definitely as we had said, this is not an EP that it might not be wise to spend a lot of time around, and in that landscape of the EP, this song is the primary neighborhood that you don't want to hang around in too much. It's dark stuff. It's heavy, and it is interesting. I always love to think about the sequencing. So you have Nutshell, and then afterwards you have I Stay Away, which is probably, if I think of Alice in Chains guitar and Jerry Cantrell, I think of I Stay Away, and this is the one song I think out of everything that Lane was a part of that he'd never had the chance to perform live in front of an audience. This is the one I would have loved to hear him sing this at some point. And I know the band currently with William, they don't play it very often, if at all, really. But just you get that weird guitar coming in, and then you get Lane coming in with the yeah, hey, yeah, and it's just, oh my god, it just gives me chills. I remember, and the music video is nuts too, with all that claymation stuff going on. But that's quintessential Alice in Chains,
and it has one of just such a, I don't know, incredible two lines. It says, "Hey, yeah," and it says, "Tears that soak a calloused heart," and I love that is. Oh, that's man, like
shit.
And like I think when we're just talking about like you can't be around too much, I think it's like it's what we're doing right now. It's talking about it, because you start talking about it and you realize all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, like this is. But tears that soak a calloused heart, and like there's just, I mean, there's so,
well,
it's just
the thing
like
with this song, because instrumentally it sounds so good that you almost forget that there's lyrics, and it's just not just them harmonizing like
and just
the whole
singing,
time.
Yeah, and singing really well.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happens to me with Soundgarden when I'm so obsessed with hearing Chris's voice that I forget to listen to how good the artists are at playing their instruments. Same thing happens here. Like the instrumentation sounds so good, and Lane's voice just sounds so good, no matter what he's saying, that I kind of forget to listen to what the lyrics are. And I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, and one thing I'm always fascinated by in poetry or in lyric writing, which is a sense of poetry, is how like powerful like one line like that can be. Tears that soak a callous heart. I mean,
it's like how much tears, how big of tears do you need to fall to be absorbed by a calloused, like guarded area, a calloused heart, no less, not even just like an area. And like, what is a calloused heart? Like, how does that come about? Like, there's so many ways. It's such a good, set of words, honestly. Like it's like a good combination set in the right area, and it's right in the middle of the song. So there's stuff before it, stuff after it that he get into.
Yeah. Well, even another lyric in that song that I've always loved, that I'm not entirely sure. I don't know that anybody knows what it meant to to Lane, who wrote this, and I don't even know what it means to me. I just like it. Is your weakness builds me, so someday you'll see. I don't know. It's just, I think it's meant different things to me at different points. It's almost like, like you'll see someday. Like I'll prove you wrong, or I'll come through finally, or I'll get through this. When you're counted out, or if someone's not being the greatest to you, that things will come around to them. I don't know what it means, but it's just, once again, it's another example of that.
Yeah, and just taking like those two lyrics and connecting it with the title, like I Stay Away, it could be, it definitely could be a relationship type of, or I mean, you just immediately start like applying it to your own life and what you would kind of view those lyrics set in. So
yep.
So hopefully, if you got out there listening, you guys probably have a really similar, I don't know, I feel like everybody listens to this stuff have similar experiences in like how they digest the lyrics.
Totally.
So you guys know what we're trying to say, is what we're saying. Like, I'm sure that like
exactly,
you're listening,
and you also know like we don't have all the answers sometimes. We don't have any of the answers most of the time.
And this is exactly what happened the first time. It's like you start getting into it, and then you have a little rabbit hole you want to touch on, and
you get too far in the rabbit hole, you don't know where you are.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, it's just like, I know what you're saying, Chris, or you're like, I know what you're trying to say, Ethan, and I think you guys out there, like, like we know what you guys are saying. Like we've been there, like had this experience with the music, and that's why we love all of this music, and especially these guys for this album, because it's a good way to kind of like level with anybody.
Yeah, totally.
That gives it a good listen, a good shot.
I absolutely agree, and it's just following along with that sequencing. So they have I Stay Away, and then they give us No Excuses. So a couple of notes before we get started. No Excuses. No Excuses, in my opinion, is one of the first songs that you need to learn how to play on the guitar if you're not good at guitar and you want to impress people and fool people into thinking that you're good at the guitar. Because first of all, you tune it a half step down, so that sounds weird, so people think you were good. Secondly, it is one chord shape just moved up and down the neck for the entire song, but people don't know that because it sounds cool, so they're going to think you're good at guitar. This is all autobiographical information. I know how to play this. I'm not a good guitar player, but people think I'm good when I play No Excuses. That's my note on that. Another one, Ethan, for you and me, this song has one of the most important lyrics to us from probably the entire genre.
This was the original Into the Flood Again that we would send back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
Before, so back, 2016.
This was almost before Grunge Bible started in 2016.
This was, because then this is when I was working with Andy. I was working with a mason, so I was doing concrete, and we were doing a lot of wall building and literally working with rocks.
Yeah.
And Chris, you were actually working on a farm, and you built a road, and you were doing basically the same stuff.
A lot of different construction type things, exactly. The manual labor, man, out in the sun in the summertime.
Obviously, so it's the second verse, and it just says, the setup. It's okay, had a bad day. Then here comes the kicker. Hands are bruised from breaking rocks all day. And that was us. I mean, and we would text each other at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, any time of the day, just hands are bruised. And then the other one would say,
you finish it off.
Breaking rocks all day.
Yeah, and it's really, as I've learned more about the genre, I remember listening to this song, and it's all acoustic, so you can hear the lyrics really easily. I remember listening, and I was like, holy shit, that's me. Come to find out that I'm assuming it was probably an allusion to heroin or drugs or something, and we've posted it sometimes with people like, oh, why are you talking about it in that fashion, like it was written about drugs? But it's like what Lane said, whatever you listen, whatever you think it's about, that's what it's about. So for us, we definitely adopted ownership of that one, and I still kind of think of that, even it's silly, but if I'm lifting or if I'm strength training or something, your hands are getting all messed up, and your hands are bruised from breaking rocks all day. You're struggling, you're sweating out there, you're doing something. But there's another lyric in this song that is probably one of my favorites, and it's probably a textbook example of the kind of relationships that are important when it's all said and done. So basically, Jerry wrote a lot of this song lyrically, kind of talking about Lane and talking about his relationship. And
this is good.
Yeah, and you got the line in the last verse. You, my friend, I will defend, and if we change, well, I love you anyway. And I think as I've gotten older, even since that summer when we first started listening to grunge music together, I've had a lot of different experiences. I've lived in a lot of different places. You meet people, the degree of closeness that you have with your friends ebbs and flows based off of your life path and where you live, and that's a testament to these kind of friends that are important. Is like if we change, I'm still gonna defend you, still gonna be here for you, and still gonna feel fondly of you, and that's always been a really, really special and important one for me that I think of often.
Yeah, I was just looking at that as you were reading it and thought the same thing. I mean, that's such a good lyric, and it's almost like it's that one friend that you grew up with that is now maybe not doing so good or totally different, and somebody's like talking bad about them, and you're just like, hey, like you still have a soft spot because they you're friends from when you were younger, and it's like the ultimate like bond. And it's such a good line. I mean, even the chorus is like, I just think like is so good. Every day it's something hits me all so cold. Find me sitting by myself, no excuses. Then I know, and I'm like, shit.
I've never known.
No excuses. Then I know.
Exactly. One funny note about this one is anytime we used to post the lyrics to this song and type them out, half of the people would say that it's no excuses, then I know, and the other half would say no excuses, that I know. And I'm pretty sure it's no excuses, then I know. And it's really funny. So I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan, and there's a very similar debate in Springsteen fandom on Thunder Road. There's a line, and is it everybody always fights over whether it's Mary's dress waves or Mary's dress sways, and everybody always fights over it. So I always think of this one as like the grunge equivalent. It's like, is it no excuses then I know, or no excuses that I know? And at the end of the day, who cares? You know what it is.
It's interesting you bring that up because it would be, you could consider them completely different if you're analyzing it.
Right.
But yeah, it's not, super
like,
critical. But
whatever you think it is,
yeah,
that's what it is.
Oh man, that is a gem. That's such a good one.
Yeah, that's a really, really fantastic song. And after that we get the instrumental of Whale and Wasp, and I think that one fits the mood of this album. And admittedly, I'm not a particularly big fan of this, and I certainly haven't spent a ton of time listening to it. But it's just super, super desolate. I don't know the motivation or the reasoning behind naming it this, but it kind of fits.
Well, I think it's interesting. I might be able to connect it because I think that's exactly what it was. It's a connection between the first half of the album and the second half, and I think it's the first half and the second half have a contrast. Whale and Wasp, they're very different animals. I mean, you got a whale is the biggest, and then a wasp is you can the difference between the two of those is extreme, and I think that it's a good bridge. It's all instrumental, which can be viewed as which I think also why probably the last song. Swing on This is primarily instrumental. So I think those two are kind of put in there as like kind of to separate and kind of be. But I'm not sure, I'm not positive, but that's how I would take it. It's just a good connecting to the rest of the album.
Yeah, totally. And so we've got that one, and then we segue into Don't Follow, which we've spoken about before. And this is another one that's up there, up there for me of songs that I wish I could have heard Lane sing, to have him come in at the end. And I really wish that they could have done this one unplugged or something. I mean, if Unplugged for them was just playing Jar of Flies front to back, I would have been super pumped about that. But this is it's got to be up there for me as we spoke about earlier, and in terms of favorites of Alice in Chains.
Yeah. It's a complete 30 minutes. I mean, I think it comes in like 30 minutes, 50 seconds, 51 seconds.
Like it's definitely, it's obviously on the short side being an EP, and as I always forget, as we said, there is another song on this one, and it's called Swing on This. Ethan, do you have any particular thoughts about this song? Because truthfully, I always forget about it. I just recently read the lyrics for the first time in several years, probably since maybe I first listened to this thing. But it's definitely drugs. I would say chance of drugs.
Yeah, it's. I think I wrote down. I did. This is one of the songs that I think I did write some stuff down on. Again, just trying to talk about it a lot about just taking the bass for the walk, taking the bass for a walk. It's a big instrumental. And I said the guitar solo almost feels like something you'd hear in a dive bar. It's dark, 9 o'clock, late at night, and the guy is playing in the back for you and your friend as you argue if you're living life the right way. And that's
holy shit, man.
Yeah. So you just picture you and me are just we're debating on how to live this life, and the dude in the back's just kind of still going.
He's just kind of noodling around a little bit. Yeah, I mean I
don't know.
That does make a lot. This whole album is kind of like a kind of shakes you awake again. It's like, hey man, are you making the right choices? Are you doing the right thing? And I think this one. It's kind of weird, thinking of this song versus, Nutshell, where in Nutshell, Lane is kind of talking about how, his struggles have pretty much robbed him of so many different things in life that one would hold dear. And then this song, it ends, let me be, I'm all right. Can't you see I'm just fine? Little skinny, okay. I'm asleep anyway. Obviously, I think alluding to, drugs and foregoing, taking care of yourself because, the drugs are kind of, taking over your life. And it's interesting, it's kind of got that duality going on of, a lot of people who struggle in this fashion will say that, at the same time, they want to get clean and they want to get high. They're competing interests. And I think, when you juxtapose those songs in different parts of this record and different parts of Lane's career, and the band's career, certainly you kind of get that element.
Yeah, it's something that those struggles are something that I pray that I'll never have to experience and experience
Likewise,
that, something that we're lucky enough to not be born into situations that may be exposed to that. I mean, a lot of this is not always choice. So I understand,
Certainly.
and it's just something that I just, it's really, sometimes it can be kind of just jolting thinking about those type of struggles for people. So
Yeah, certainly.
that's really,
So I have one more
all
question about this album, or about this EP as we kind of come to a close, going song by song. And it's about Nutshell. So similar to the hypothetical that people say a lot of times that, would Kurt Cobain and Nirvana have been as prolific had Kurt not passed away? Do you think Nutshell and a lot of these songs would be held in as high regard had Lane not, succumbed to the different things that he was struggling with? What are your thoughts on that?
I think so like as soon as you start bringing that up, you brought up Nirvana, and I was like, okay, let me think of another album. So I thought of Foo Fighters and how I view all of their songs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a lot that stick out, but not for that reason. Then you think of like, Chris Cornell and his songs and how they changed when he passed away. So I think that if I have to be honest, I think that him passing away does do a lot for these songs because of the subject matter, because of everything that was going on. It's hard not to think that because we talked about this a lot. I think at least me and you together, like when Cornell passed, and since he's the most recent, like it's like, oh, there's so many warning signs in the lyrics, and so I think that it allows you to kind of you feel more connected because you feel more connected to their story because there was an ending in a way. And it's really sad to say, but I think that for some reason that allows you to feel a little bit, you understand a little bit more, even though it's impossible to understand. So totally. I do think these situations have that type of effect on people. I mean, even like if you take to another genre, like Juice WRLD, he passed away and he was, I don't know, 21, 22 or something, maybe not even. And, same thing. His songs, they look back and they're just like, oh my gosh.
Mac Miller even too,
Mac Miller, yeah, and these people, and it definitely makes him like, yeah, Mac Miller, people adore, and I know people still listen to a ton, and so I think that, if it's a good thing or not, I don't know. I mean, I would hate to hear someone do stuff intentionally to kind of like make their name live on, and like the best way to prove yourself is to live on.
Yeah, I totally. Yeah, the Eddie Vedder, living is the best revenge.
Yeah, that's it. Living is the best revenge.
And I think with this debate, as people have and will continue to have about a lot of, musicians or people in the public eye that passed before their time, I think the one thing that is not debatable in the case of Kurt or the case of Lane or Mac Miller or whoever is their greatness. Whether Lane, passed away in 2002 like he did, or he lived to be 100, I think everybody would recognize, appreciate, and respect his greatness. But it definitely, there is an eeriness, there is a, it gives a different element to the music, and it's a look in, like you said. I think another side of it is like what it does, it just like their discography ends there. Like Nirvana has what they have. Yeah. They have their 3 or 4 albums or whatever it is, and they have 45 songs, something like that. Right. Like it's very finite, so they don't live on and produce. I mean, even the Foo Fighters have, Pearl Jam. They have like really that's a wide discography, and long
it's great.
Time, exactly. And with Alice in Chains, I mean, after Jar of Flies, they did the 3-Legged Dog, the self-title in '96. So, even at this time in 93, 94, when they were recording and releasing Jar of Flies, the statistical majority of Lane's work as a musician was already in the rear view, which is something that, you never know for certain at the time. But yeah, that is, it's like once.
And if you think about
gone, that's it.
And if you think about the way that most people progress, how they follow a band, like we talk about a lot of times, is usually at some point they start doing things differently and they go, so your attitude changes, or they live, I think in the words of, the Batman or whatever. Like he lived long enough to be the villain.
Yeah,
in a lot of cases.
absolutely. Oh, we've seen that many times. I was like, what the fuck is Eddie Vedder doing with a ukulele?
Yeah, like please, no more solo stuff. So like, I think that what it does is it like totally like it's you hit the sweet spot and then it's gone. So there's no way to tarnish anything. There's no way to make it better. Like it is, and it becomes the what if, and that is just so alluring to humans in this life.
It's elusive, and it's something that people just naturally want to think about. Like, I mean, I think
alternate
about that a lot
realities
with a lot of artists, even a lot of even in sports, if someone retires young, it's like like one in the National Football League, like what
Calvin
if Barry
Johnson.
Sanders didn't retire at 31 or something, or especially with this. I mean, I think about Jimi Hendrix, because I mean he could hypothetically still be alive right now as we're having this conversation. Kurt, obviously, Lane, Scott Weiland, Chris Cornell. I mean, just what art there was still. And Shannon Hoon, I was just thinking about him earlier today.
The list goes on. Obviously,
yeah. There's so much art that
we lose people every day that
wasn't created. Because of this, and I think it would be selfish and it would be disingenuous for us to spend so much time lamenting their passing because of all of the music we didn't get to hear, because obviously somebody lost a son, a daughter, a father, or whatever. But it is there's a big void that's created when something like this happens.
Yeah. But just, obviously don't want to talk about the music we didn't have, but we get to celebrate the music we did have and the time we had it. And, it's impactful because it's, really, really good.
He's turning 28 in a week and a half, and here we are releasing a show about it, and people are, wanting to hear about it, and they still listen to it, and they will forever.
Probably all stuff that has been said before for many, many years. But it is fun to talk about it with you, Chris, to be able to have these conversations, because this is the music that, this is the album, the music that got us into the genre and stuff that we love. So it's definitely a great EP. And it's I know you said it's not the best for background music, but it is kind of nice because there's a lot of good music that if you put on and you can just not really tune into like everything they're saying and just hear the harmonies.
Keeps you from feeling some of the heaviness of it sometimes when you're focused on maybe something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe if you take out Nutshell, but some of the other stuff is it's nice.
Yeah, like no excuses or something. I Stay Away. It's just ripping in the car when you're driving or something. Absolutely. Exactly. Well, Ethan, almost 2 years in the making. We just did an episode on Jar of Flies.
This is like, I mean, it's kind of like what we talked about. It's like finally hitting that PB after 2 years of not hitting it, or like finally.
They don't know what went into it. They didn't see the process.
It's like finally passing the driver's test after 3 failed attempts or something wild.
Yeah, this was a long time coming, and hopefully we presented it in a way that was interesting.
Yeah, I think we did. I think we did it justice. I really hope so. Yeah. If we didn't. I mean, if we did, tell us, and if we didn't, well, you can tell us about that as well. We'll take it.
Absolutely. So in the meantime, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, as we spoke about last week, you can now leave ratings on Spotify, and that's very important because a lot of you listen on Spotify. So go ahead on the Spotify mobile app. You can go to our podcast page. At the top, there's going to be a little clickable button that has a star number and then a number of ratings given. I think at this point we have like 49 or 50 ratings, and we're still holding the 5-star rating, so we haven't taken on water yet. So if you're enjoying us, or if you're not, just go ahead, leave that rating, man. It's good for you. It's good for us.
51 5-star rating, baby. We're doing it. Yeah. And then I think Chris didn't. What were the numbers for the last week pod? Where we kind of had our little breakthrough. I definitely.
Yeah, we're doing well. We've got our most views in a week on YouTube in
YouTube was up
6 or 7 months. The podcast downloads are up. We've got our most downloads within a week of release.
I think we have
a long time.
Yeah, I think we don't have that many views on YouTube. And even if you guys don't watch on YouTube, that's fine. But you guys probably have a YouTube account. Why don't you go subscribe? Because why not? Just do it. Do it for us. Do it because you love us. Because we're at like 600 or something. So if we get to
we're at like 615.
I think 1,000 is substantial in the YouTube world. So like, dude, I mean, even if you just do it because you love us, do it because you love Chris and I. Come on.
Especially do it because you love Ethan. I know you guys get tired of me sometimes,
down.
But look at Ethan. Come on.
Yeah, I'm down today. I need that extra boost. I want to get some.
This man's day. Give us a rating, subscribe, follow, recommend to a friend, share on your Instagram story, whatever you got to do.
Let's make this relationship public. Start posting about Grunge Bible. You guys don't need to be quiet about it.
You don't have to keep us quiet on the weekends anymore. You can tout us around town like you're number one. Because that's hopefully what we are.
Yeah. So, there's plenty of ways to support, but that's what we're asking this week is the, that shit.
Which coincidentally is the same thing we've been asking the last 44 weeks.
Same trip it was back then.
Learn it, use it, and live it. Well, before we close up, I think we have one more segment here, and that would be our song of the week. Ethan, I know you're in a rough spot, so I'm just picturing that your song of the week is going to be Nutshell, or is going to be something along that line. But do you have anything picked out, or would you like me to lead in?
I got. I'll let you go first. I have a few I think I could go with, but I got one that's good.
He's got a list written out. So my song of the week is going back to 1991, and it is "Come In Alone" from My Bloody Valentine's Loveless album, which I can't believe that I had only heard that album for the first time last year in 2021, and I think I posted about it at the time that I had heard it, and that album affected me in a way that music hadn't in a long time, just because of how different and unique it sounds. And Comin' Alone is probably my favorite from that record. I don't really know how to describe it, so I'm not going to. But if you haven't listened to My Bloody Valentine's Loveless album, play it and play it loudly and play it front to back and just lay down or something and just listen to it, because you're in for a treat.
Well, for my listening this past 2 weeks, I've really been, honestly, I've been listening to a lot of, I think I brought it up last week, but I've been listening to a lot of like Russian like deep house beats and like music that I don't understand the lyrics to. It's just easy. I don't need to think about it, and it's so like
you've been
really
listening
big.
To Pearl Jam because you can't understand the lyrics, right?
Yes, I can't get off of his newest stuff. But the song I'm gonna go with is one of these weeks I'm gonna put one of these songs, but I don't even know what the titles are because I don't speak Russian.
Like, how do you know?
It's like hieroglyphics. They're just But the song I'm gonna go with is called, in all caps, "Drugs," and it's by Ty Verdes. And because I am down, I'm down in a hole in a way. But the song is really. It's also again really big. It has a really catchy chorus. And it says, "Sometimes I do drugs, not hard ones, just ones that change my mind change my mind up." Yeah, drugs, not hard ones, just the ones that change my mind up. And so I've been driving in the car just like yelling it like I do these drugs. So it's good. It's a good song. It's really catchy. It's really fun.
I'm gonna listen to that one as soon as I get done here. I'm driving to the gym. I'm gonna throw that on and see how it affects me.
It's perfect. I think you'll really like it. I'm excited to hear your opinion on it. You'll really like it. So, "Drugs" by Ty Verdes. It's been good. It's been a positive boost for me, and I'm gonna listen to it this afternoon as well.
Right on. I like that.
That's good. Also, shout out to Drew. Thank you for producing this episode.
Thank you, Drew McFadden.
Thank you, Chris, for having me on once again for 43rd week in a row. Or 44th, whatever.
This is my show, motherfucker.
And I'm gonna thank myself for making it here today.
Yeah, I'm thankful for your presence, Ethan. Hopefully, both for Ethan and for all of the listeners, this has been an oasis in the mirage that life often is.
Yeah.
How's that for some?
That's crazy.
Some rhetorical prowess right there.
That right there is exactly what you're going to get from Grunge Bible. Is some weird, some good. Oh, yeah. Would you say paralysis or what? Did you say? Paralysis.
They're not the same thing at all.
I know. I was trying to repeat what you said, and I couldn't think of it. So I always thought it was analysis by paralysis or something.
It was close enough. We've had a long day. Mainly you've had a long day. I'll give you the mulligan for that. Who cares?
Oh, yeah. Not me. Think I care? I don't care.
Bummer, and you are. But
this was fun. I'm really happy to do this every week, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks as well. We got good things coming down the pipe. Make sure you become a patron and give us your best patron name so we can say that out loud. And there's going to be some cool things, so it's worth it.
Absolutely. That's it. Well, thanks everyone for listening, for spending the last hour with us talking Jar of Flies. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, same lovely shining faces and lovely voices coming to you. So thanks again, everybody.
Signing off.
Take care, everybody. Rock and roll.
That is a good one, and I'm glad you got had that experience with that album. That's great. That's a good one, dude. Yeah, I think I said this last week. Honestly, I've been listening to a lot of like Russian music where I don't understand the lyrics at all, and it's like super.
I'm dying.
He's dying over there.
All right, Drew, we gotta cut that.
I also
55 minutes.
Yeah, Drew, he'll already know this, but my mic got pulled out, like, so I missed like the first little bit. I had to plug it back in and start back. So I had to take the Zoom audio, but
which part?
Like the first like 20 minutes probably. Like my mic had pulled out, and I think the recording stopped. It didn't just switch, and I forgot to check it. So
he's gonna have his work.
We don't know. We don't know how hard it is. No,
That's true. All right. Well, I'm back, so I'll just Drew. You can cut that right.
I think it's just me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, for my